I'm Lorianne Macco, and I'm the Alumni Director for NTID. I am thrilled that we are able to host this event for tonight. It's nice to see so many alumni in the room. Now, if you're an alumni, can you raise your hand? Who graduated from RIT? I am as well. Who are the current students? Awesome. Thank you for giving up some of your time to come to our event tonight. We really do appreciate it. I look forward to learning a lot tonight, and it does seem that the captions are working now, so that's great. I have been chatting with our presenters throughout the summer, trying to work this event out, as well as our other presenters, and I am thrilled that we finally were able to make it work. So I now want to introduce Russ and Melanie Stein. They are here to talk about business and entrepreneurship as well as their experiences. After that, they're going to lead a panel, and we'll let them talk about their experience as well. I'm just going to let Russ and Melody lead the way. All right, everyone, have a great evening.
All right, hello, everyone.
That's a little bit better, right?
All right, hello. Like Lorianne said, my name is Russell Stein, and I am from San Francisco, California. And I am the proud co-owner and co-founder of Mazzeria Corporation and the proud co-owner and co-founder of Yantern.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melody Stein, and I'm also from San Francisco, California. I'm class of SVP 92, so I'm thrilled to be back here at NTID.
Tonight, we are ecstatic to be here. We're hosting a live interview with 3 wonderful business owners. Before I talk about them a little bit, I want to talk about the purpose of tonight. We're talking about the founder's journey through the lens of an entrepreneur. Melody and I will have some questions for our panelists to ask them why they got started, how they got started. Some of you in the audience, I'm sure, want to be entrepreneurs. Who does? Can you raise your hand and give us a show? How many of you are terrified to set up a business? Let me add my hand to that one, too. I feel just like you. There's nothing special about me. I'm not immune to that fear. Melody and I went through that as well. But we're looking forward to learning more about our 3 business owners, and hopefully you'll be just as excited. Are you ready? Before I do bring them up on stage, I want to give you a brief explanation of what it is that we're talking about tonight. Yantern has 3 focuses. We focus online with entrepreneurs with 8 different classes online. Sometimes you have an idea, but then you have to turn that into testing it out, figuring out your business plan, finding financing and insurance, and all of those things that you need to set up a business. We do all of that through online videos using Zoom technology. And those classes are limited to 8 people. And the reason for that is to make sure that the class can continue to be interactive. In a big lecture hall, you can't have much interaction, but with a small group like 8, we can have that. We also provide mentorships, and consultations. There are sometimes businesses that are already running but want to expand, and we can give them advice that way. And last but not least, we do presentations like this one. We work with hearing corporations, we work with schools for the deaf, and talk to anyone about being an entrepreneur. Any questions so far? Anything you want to add, Melody?
Nope, I think you've said it all.
All right, then we're ready to bring up our 3 presenters. I'm going to have them come on up and sit down, and then we'll do some brief introductions. So what this is going to look like is pretty simple. I'm going to assign a question from up here where I'm standing, and then when our panelists have an answer, I'm going to ask for them to stand so that everyone in the audience can see.
All right, does everyone want to introduce themselves and just talk, just a brief introduction of what your name and what your business is? Hi, everyone. My name is Zach Ennis, and I go by Zach. I was born and raised in Maryland, close to D.C., and me and another woman named Brittany Kamegna, who also works at NTID, own a company called deafgreenthumbs. We are very present on Instagram, as well as other social media, and we have been established for the past 5 months.
Give them a round of applause. He's only been in business for 5 months, and he's up here as a panelist now with individuals of many different years of experience. Eventually, Zachary is going to be like our last presenter tonight.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laural Hartman. Some of you have seen me around here. I am a professor on campus in the Visual Studies program. My company is known as Dirtybeardpress. I've been running since about 2010, 2011, around that time, and it started in San Francisco, California.
All right, let's give Laural a round of applause, too. And our last but not least panelist. Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Meyer. And I started a business 20 years ago, actually. It's DHH Insurance Company. And I'll make my story short. I ended up partnering up with another agency. I'm originally from Chicago. I graduated from NTID and actually had my first job in the insurance business. I worked in that industry for about 30 years, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight.
All right, you can see the 3 businesses that we have represented here. We have deafgreenthumbs, Dirtybeardpress, and DHH Insurance. Now, I'm just wondering, how did you choose the name of your businesses? All right, I guess I'm going to go first. One nice thing about not doing something alone is you have a person to kind of bounce ideas off of. So we went through a few different names, and we brainstormed a little bit together trying to find the perfect name for our business. And we tried to find something super complicated, but we recognized that coming up with a simpler name was a better way to go. So we thought about plants. We recognized that we were both deaf, and somebody said deaf green thumb. That's what Brittany suggested. And I was like, that might be too simple. But we recognized that that was not used yet, and we thought that it might be a great option for our business. And so we know that people who have different degrees in marketing, both of us don't have that. We decided that it still could be something that is simple and straight to the point, and that is easily understood by a general audience, and that's exactly what we went with. So I do letterpress print, which is not necessarily always digital. All of them are very, very heavy. And there's their own community of letterpress print. And so I've noticed that a lot of people use this within their business name, but I wanted something that was representing me and who I was as a person. And I knew that I wanted to be invested and really motivated to keep my business going and to keep making more art. And so when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to name it, it took me over a year because I didn't want to go with something with my name, Laural Hartman. I knew that that wasn't something that people were going to remember. So there were 2 different things that I was throwing back and forth. I was thinking of water, something that maybe I could play with the word, with the beard. And so I really recognized that that was a great way that I could do it because you get dirty when you're doing this sort of art. So when you're making paper or making small cards, I realized that this was a great way that it could work. So I was thinking of what would match my art as well as what it looked like when you were doing that. So it's the Dirtybeardpress. It gave me a community that I was able to belong to.
Great, thank you, Laural. All right, I think everyone can see me all right from over here. I want you to keep in mind that I set up my business before things really got started with the internet, before video phones were around. I used TTYs back then. Now, DHH When the internet really started to come up and be more prevalent, I didn't want to just be called deaf and hard of hearing. I wanted an abbreviation, which is why I went with DHH Insurance. People knew that if they were deaf and they needed insurance, they could find me, DHH Insurance. And my name and the brand have been there now for 30 years. I'm now under another agency, CH Insurance Brokers, but DHH is still there. And I do market myself as DHH Insurance to make sure that people can find me easily. This is Russell. And we want to talk to you as well about Mozzarella and our name. So, Melody, can you share?
How did we come up with the name Mozzarella? My husband loves mozzarella cheese. We go through so much mozzarella cheese every year, so we wanted to include that as part of the word. And we recognize that in New York City, there are lots of different pizzerias, so we combined these two words. We used M-O-Z-Z and the rest of the word from pizzeria, and that's how we came up with the title Mozzarella.
And then our second business, Yantern. Can you explain that, Melody?
I am quite fond of lanterns. I am Asian, and that is something that is a strong part of my culture, something that we use quite often. And we use that as a way to, as a part of our deaf business. We're using light to guide the way for deaf people to create their own deaf businesses. So this is a great way that we can spread the word and talk and teach other deaf people how to own their own businesses. So we use this one word, lantern, and then we switched it out to a Y, and we chose the Y because both of us have different strengths, but we're bringing them both to the table. So what we do is we have these two different parts of the letter Y, the way that it looks, and we're both bringing those to the table, and that's how we came up with Yantern.
And now that leads me to my next question for our panelists, or even for us. We're going to first ask and talk about Mozzarella and Yantern and how we came up with our business, and then we'll ask our other three business owners as well. You saw at first maybe Happa and Stein. That was a business that I was involved with, but then I ended up having a chronic illness. And I moved and started then working for the Communication Services for the Deaf, which is actually the company that helped fund this building. I worked with them for many years, but my chronic illness continued to the point that I ended up having to let myself go. I knew that I had to get myself out of it because I was sick all the time. Now, I'm not the type of person who will just stay in their house all the time. I had multiple surgeries in an 8-month span. I had kidney stones. It's a long story, but I decided that I knew that my world was gone. I was always on the move until this illness really took over my life, and then I was just at home alone. So I talked to Melody about setting up Happa and Stein Incorporated as a consulting company. I have a pretty strong background in video relay service, and I felt strongly that if we set up that business, I could then partner with different VRS companies around for different sorts of training or consultation. I ended up signing up with multiple different companies, ZVRS, Convo, many VRS companies. I raised some money, and then that led us to ASL Wave. And then ASL Wave led to another new company. I was able to continue growing the savings that I had, and then we took that money to set up Mozzarella. So I went from being pretty depressed and not knowing what was going on in my life. I honestly felt kind of homeless. I felt very woe is me. And then I made something out of it. And look what happened. Yes, I'm still sick, but I'm here talking to you all today. And now I want to ask our business owners that are here with us, why did you set up your business? What was it for? What was the reasoning? There are some of you who are partners, others who work solo. Who wants to talk to us?
I don't mind going first. I am a graduate of RIT. I graduated in 2007, and my degree was in illustration. I knew with some graphic design as well. I always loved the old printing press, and it was something that I was always interested in, the green room type of thing, just the beautiful old prints that they had. But I always wanted to know the different machines and different equipment that we had here. Some of these machines were obsolete. Often we don't use this sort of printing. We're often switching to digital now. And I really wanted to know more about this old-fashioned equipment that we had. But there was a small community that still utilized it. It is gorgeous once it's used, and it's something that is much more tactile. You can feel it, you can see how something is embossed, you can touch the paper, and that is texturally very satisfying and something that I was really, really interested in. And when I was working here after I graduated, I had a few odd jobs, but I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. Was it something that I wanted to be here? I wasn't really sure. So my husband encouraged me to set up a company in California, and so we decided to move and kind of take that opportunity. I started to do some research in the library about different sorts of print, and luckily enough, there was a museum that I was able to go to and do some research about different artists and the different technology that they used. And I didn't have any training in printing at that time, and that was how I was able to learn it. At the time, I had a neighbor who used letterpress printing, and I contacted them, and I actually went to their shop and learned how to use the printing press, and I shadowed for a short time, even though I wasn't being paid. It was kind of a struggle financially, but I'm really grateful for that opportunity because it gave me everything that I needed. And one of the last things that I was doing, my husband didn't have a job at that time, so he was trying to support both of us. And I was trying to figure out exactly if I would take a job that I wasn't going to be interested in, or was I going to invest in some new equipment. So I went onto Craigslist, and I found an old printing press. And I know that they weren't made anymore. So I started to think, well, what am I supposed to do? The new generation doesn't use this. The newspaper is falling. It's not used quite as much anymore. The older generation doesn't use Craigslist. So after a while, I posted an ad in the classifieds and used my last paycheck to buy that printing press. Thank you. And during that process of research, I knew I didn't want to give up during that time, but it was a labor of love. I feel like I've gotten a little off topic. Am I still answering the question? I do have an off topic of kind of taking the conversation where I need it to go, but all of it really is about networking. Sometimes you just have to work for free. You have to take the opportunities that are given. Sometimes that's volunteer work, and find your community. And then I went from there.
This is Gary. Nice job, Laural. Really, it was about 25 years ago now. I ended up working for a large insurance company, and I was implementing some marketing for them. And at that time, like I said, I was still using TTY technology. The concept behind it was to set up an 800 call center. I was working, like I said, for one large company. And after a few years, the company started to shift. And that forced me to make some personal decisions. I could move, I could stay. I ended up staying and then setting up my own agency. And that's where I really got started.
So I wanted to start about 6 years ago, and I recognized that I had a lot of different ideas. I was going to different presentations, watching blogs on Facebook, going to different workshops. And I started working on a plan for a nonprofit. And we all know that academia is a great place to start an environment. Actually, not so much. But I recognized that other people had all of these different levels of degrees. And that you always feel that people are more qualified than you. So that's kind of a struggle. I recognized that I needed to get more training, and so I decided to get a degree in political science with a minor in philosophy. But I never had taken a business class throughout my college experience, and I wasn't sure exactly how to set up a business, so it's something that I wasn't really ready for at that time. So I was talking with my wife about something that I had been considering. I recognized that it's something that I wanted to do, and then she was diagnosed with cancer, and that lasted for about 3 years and took a lot of our time during that 3 years. And it was a long road to get her healthy again. And so every day that she wasn't sick was a small victory that we had. So I understand what Russ is talking about, how that illness can take over so much of your life. But I still had to go to work every day. You still have to do your daily life routine. You still have to make sure that you're getting everything ready, as well as taking care of my wife. So instead of sitting in an office, I was able to work from home. I was able to work remotely, as well as taking care of my wife. And then I recognized that my health got so much better after I started a business because I was able to take care of things, everything in the same space. So we did go through this whole illness, but once again, I mentioned my partner, Brittany. The two of us had gone to school together, and we've known each other ever since elementary school. And we finally ended up back in Rochester together. And both of us have very similar interests in plants and similar hobbies. And I recognized that she has a lot of different strengths where I have weaknesses, and vice versa. And that's something that's very cool because we're able to come together and make kind of a great pair. So it just kind of worked out. We don't feel that we're stable. Sometimes we're kind of all over the place, or I'm kind of all over the place, and she's more stable, as is my wife. But I really have always enjoyed plants, and that's something that's cool. You just water it, you can see it grow. If you don't water it, it's going to die. So you recognize the plant is starting to wilt, you water it, and it can get better. And that's really nice. That's something that you see with plants, how it doesn't, you can take care of it and you can help it grow again. So instead of starting up that nonprofit that I had originally done, I decided to use that same business plan, but still be able to give back to the community and still be able to provide things for the environment and provide things for our community. So for the past 5 months, we've been able to do already a lot of great things, and I'm able to do that because of the partner that I do have.
If you notice, all three had a different reason. Some were because of health issues, some were because of their own will. And really, there's no cookie cutter for businesses. Everyone coming into the business world has their own reasons, and that's part of the beauty of it all. Everyone here has their own story, and you in the audience have your own story too. We're all special.
Again, I want to talk about why did we establish Mazzeria. Ever since I was young, I knew that I wanted to have a restaurant. Just like Zach said he loved plants, he found something that worked really well for him as well as his partner. Laural, you've always loved the printing press and loved art, and you've loved working with people and recognized a need within the community. And just like Russ and I, we recognized that there were a lot of different businesses available, but none that were providing their services in ASL.
And here's another example now with deafgreenthumbs. There hadn't been any, and now there's a new one. Back then, we didn't really have the resources, but now so many more people have that knowledge and are able to continue growing and setting up businesses for themselves. It'll be amazing 10 years from now, looking back today and being like, wow, how simple life was back then. But oh my gosh, I also want to mention RIT has an amazing entrepreneurship program. So students, use your resources, help grow a business, and help grow yourselves as well.
So all of us knew that we wanted to start a business, but how did you know it was going to become successful? Where did that journey come from? So how did we know if our business was going to be successful? You don't. You just don't know. It's a risk. 5 months ago, I recognized that it was a fun idea, but at the same time, it was a gamble. We knew that we had some finances, but we were going to have to invest a lot of time. We knew it was going to be a heavy responsibility, and we had to navigate all of this together. But now, 5 months later, we've done a lot of networking. We've had a lot of great opportunities. We also have some things scheduled for next year. We're going to go to Arizona for a workshop. We're going to go to Georgia. We just went to Michigan. We have all of these different opportunities that have been presented to us, and that just kind of happened. A lot of it has to do with motivation, but on the same token, my biggest advice is just do it, because you never know until you try. Graphic design is very competitive as a field. You need to develop your own style, and because often you'll see people have the same sort of style. It's all about word of mouth. Some people like specific styles better than others, and you need to find your own style. Once again, I've mentioned that I've loved the tactile feeling of this older equipment, and it's something that's more popular now, but 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. So you just have to grab the opportunities where they are. It's really important when you're in this field to focus on the style, because a lot of people just don't care about printing. Everything has switched to digital. Everything is online. We have evites and wedding invites that are all fully online. You need to convince people that your work is needed, and it's worth the extra effort to have that tactile feeling.
So how did I know? I didn't know. I walked in and I set up the business, and I never expected it would be where it is today. It definitely was a risk. I took a risk. I had 2 little kids at the time. I took out a loan from the bank. That helped me before I had income coming in. And of course, my wife was working as well. But for me, it was really a one-man operation. I didn't foresee the technological changes and advances that would be happening. But sitting here today now, there are many people working in the office with me. I've partnered with an agency. I have a video phone that I'm on every day. I actually talk to Russ every now and then on the video phone. Honestly, I want to say thank God for technology. If it wasn't for technology, I would not be standing here today. Right, like he said, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for technology. I think Zach and his business are ahead because of social media. If it weren't for social media, we would all be in different places today. Do you remember the Yellow Pages? Yellow Pages used to be so important. Typically, you would want to pick a name that started with an A because it was going to be in the first pages of the Yellow Pages. No one was going to read through the entire book to get to the Z's, but nowadays, all you have to do is type in a couple of letters, and they're all right there at the tip of your fingers. So I'm sure that you're all grateful for technology. Our technology now is getting us into the business more quickly than we used to be able to. Actually, I was talking to one person, and they were talking about the Washington Post. They wanted to get an ad in the Washington Post, and it cost $1,000. Now we can advertise for free on social media, and it's such a beautiful thing.
The same as our panelists mentioned, we did not know if our business was going to be successful, but you have to put in the effort beforehand, before you get things started. Make sure you're advertising. Make sure you're putting yourself out there so you're getting the attention that you deserve. Just like everyone else, you have to do something unique. You can't just be following the same that everyone else is doing. You have to figure out what's going on in that area. If you want to start a restaurant, you can't have 10 other pizzerias that are all in that same location. You need to find a way to make that different. So for example, what we did, we had an all-deaf team. We used an Asian influence. We have a wood fire stove. And we recognized that the other businesses that were around us did not have those same things. So the same with your businesses. You recognize that they're new ideas, and that's a great way to get ahead. There's a lot of people have plants in their home, but people might not know how to take care of them, and they're not catering to the deaf community, so you're able to do that. Oh, do you want to add something, Zach? I'm not sure about how easy it was to set up a business before compared to now, because I only have experience with now. But the game is definitely different now than it used to be. We have the internet. We can Google things in an instant. Competition is everywhere. You can see all of these different things on Google, so they all come up in one simple search. And one of the biggest decisions that we made on day one, we knew a few friends that had set up failed businesses before. Even though they had beautiful website, great production, they found their niche. But the biggest problem that they had is that Google was not able to find their business. It would only be on the 5th or 6th page. How do you get your name to the top? You need to figure out a way that people are able to search and add specific search terms. So you want to make sure that your business is coming up right at the beginning. So you need to add specific search terms so when people do that, it will come up at the top. So what we decided to do was to hold off on our website and build our brand first. So we developed our Instagram page first, and that spread quite rapidly. After about a month, we had about 5,000 followers, and that's after only 5 months too. We're growing quite rapidly. So first we decided we wanted to expand, and then a few months ago we finally released our website. So instead of doing it the other way, typically people will set up their website first, but then people aren't aware about the brand and they're not able to find it. So my suggestion is social media first, build your brand, and then release your website, depending on your business model.
I think that's great, Zach. I agree. For example, Mazzeria, before we started, Melody was writing a blog, and we didn't have the restaurant. We didn't really have the idea of the restaurant, but that blog helped us because so many people were following her. So if it weren't for that, we may have different followers and have had a different journey.
We needed to develop our story in order to spread our brand. Is there anything you wanted to add, Laural? Again, it all goes back to the power of social media. Use Facebook, use Instagram, and that's something that I've used for my business as well. Additionally, a lot of websites have subdivisions that have different areas. So for example, if you want to be involved in weddings, you could have that specific thing. And you can add these things for free. So I do encourage my clients to give feedback, and that has been very helpful for me. Also, you can include words like deaf, whatever style you're using, to make sure that you're helping to develop your own brand.
All right, great. We've got another probably 25 minutes to go. And I'm going to ask 2 questions at the same time, and I hope that you can answer both. It's very common for people to ask Melody and myself how expensive it was to set up a business. Who feels that pain? So I want to take this opportunity to ask our business owners up here. I don't need exact numbers, but I'm wondering what sort of initial investment you needed to start your businesses. And a follow-up to that is, how were you able to find those funds? Now, I'll give you my reasoning why I'm asking this. Mazzeria is a brick and mortar place, and it cost us $280,000 to get started. And like I was explaining before, we had Hapa and Stein Incorporated, money grew a little bit there, then ASL Wave, I got some more money, plus I then was able to take out 2 loans, not from the bank because the banks denied us immediately. 90% of restaurants fail within the first year, so banks don't want to take that risk. It's too high a risk for them. So what Melody and I did was not give up. Obviously not. We're here today to talk to you. So maybe I did pull a little bit of my hair out. You can see I'm pretty bald. But let me give you 2 actual truths. So we've been married for 22 years. And we do love each other. But we have many challenges. We fight over what we think is best for the business. We try to make the business better, but sometimes my opinion and her opinion is different. And we don't want our personal thoughts to be affecting our business. So we have to be aggressive. And I think the hardest part is asking people for money, which is exactly what we had to do. It's not like, I go up to someone and say, hey, can you give me $100,000? No, we had to be creative. We had to think of where we could find money. So we found people, we negotiated, we actually flew them into San Francisco. We had our own oven in the backyard to do some testing of our product. We basically wine and dined them to get them the experience of enjoying our product so that we knew that they would support it. If we gave it to them and they hated the product, we wouldn't have even bothered asking them. But they liked it, we asked, and they gave us $100,000, and we had another individual do the same. Part of the negotiation, though, was offering them 6% interest. Right now, if you were to go to Wells Fargo for a savings account, you get 0.01, maybe 0.02% interest. So 6% looks much better than that, right? The one negative, though, is $100,000 is a lot of money. So now that we found those people, we had to talk to them about what would happen if our business wasn't successful. So we made that negotiation, we had the discussion. The equipment that we had purchased, if our business failed, we would sell the equipment off first, and that money would go to them before us. So for us, we would get the last return on the investment. They were a happy camper, we were happy, and luckily enough for us, we've been running for 8 years, and we've since been able to pay them off. So now, like I said, I want to ask you those 2 questions. About how much initial capital did you need, and how did you find or get that? Because we know that so many people think that businesses need a lot of money, and that's not true. Yantern started with only $3,000. Everything else has been through different things: social media, word of mouth, contracts, visibility because of our reputation. Many people, like I said, think it's an expensive investment every time, but that's not true. Like Zach was just telling us, he set up an Instagram for free before even bothering with a website. So a lot of capital for your business isn't necessarily true. If you're looking into a restaurant, anytime you have a physical building, obviously that's going to cost a lot. But anyway, now back to our 3 panelists. If you could answer those 2 questions for us, that would be great. So basically for me, what had happened was I was basically given the opportunity to take out a loan through the county. So I was able to get, I believe it was $15,000 through the county. Obviously with interest. And the business then used that money to purchase equipment, office supplies, rent our office. But it ended up being that I was able to make money through selling insurance. So I already had those earnings coming in. I was already earning an income, and then I paid off that loan in just 5 years' time. And after that, it's been a pretty sustainable business. And what was your other question? How much initial capital did it take? For me, $15,000. $15,000, and that was, 25 years ago? So if that were today, I don't think that would be the same amount of money, right? It would probably be more.
I mean, with interest, it's definitely going to go up. Again, I mentioned before that I used my last paycheck to buy the printing press, so I would say that was about $3,000. And then once I got it, I had so many different ideas. But I told myself that I needed to just focus on one thing at a time. I didn't have money to buy paper and other equipment, ink, and supplies. So what I did instead, I posted wedding invitations. And then I would say if people wanted this, to contact me. And I did that for about 6 to 8 weeks. And I would work on the design during that discussion. And so they would give me a deposit, and I would use that deposit to buy the ink and the paper and the equipment that I needed. I did some jobs at home, and I was able to build up my business. And over time, I was able to add other products as well as add other things to my business. And it just took that time.
See, the key there was having one focus. Most successful businesses have one focus. They don't try to get into multiple industries or have multiple focuses. They need to focus on one thing and maybe then branch out from there.
Once again, my business is a partnership. So there's two of us. There's less risk because we've both invested. I would say it was about $3,000 to $4,000. And that money went into different startup costs. We had to develop our incorporated name. We had to get forms, that sort of thing, hire a CPA. At the same time, we wanted to print some T-shirts. So our logo, we paid for that. And the cost to make the shirts, using the printing screen, that sort of thing. We had various small fees. Is Yumi here? She helped us we had to develop our website. We needed to make sure that everyone was being compensated appropriately, but it was only a few $1,000s. That's awesome. So you can see how all of our businesses require different amounts of capital to get started, but you have to be able to do that in order to start your business, and then eventually you'll pay it off. Oh, Yumi was trying to figure out why she was being called up. So Yumi was the artist for the Deaf Green Thumb shirts. Once again, Mazzeria, being a brick and mortar store, we needed to make sure that we had customers, and we were worried we might not have any customers on the first day. So what we did was we had a reservation system, so we wanted to make sure that we were able to pay for all of the equipment, make sure everything that we needed to pay for.
It cost us $50 a month for just the equipment. And then, if maybe Gary made a reservation through OpenTable, a website, then he booked maybe 6 people. We would then have to pay $6. If he, though, were to use our website, it would only be 50 cents each, so $3. So every time reservations are made, we have to pay.
So the first month, it cost us around $1,000, so we decided that that was not the best system. We realized that we wanted to switch to something else. We needed something better because that was quite expensive. So we recognized that there was another startup company that we decided to partner with, and it was $0 a month, and then we started going through there, and were able to actually feel confident in our customer base.
Yeah, and Mazzeria, we've made a profit every year, but we finally have been able to recover after our second year. We've finally been really getting good profit. You're not going to start a business and have profit tomorrow. If that were true, everyone here would be business owners.
So you need to set a goal. You understand that the first year is going to be a struggle. The second year will be a little bit different. It's a new business. That's going to take time for people to come. But then maybe the first year you might have some pretty high clientele, but the second year it's not a new business anymore, so it's not quite as cool. So what we did was we started a food truck and had a trolley. So that was able to help increase our business. So we need to keep up with the times. What about you guys? I know you guys have only been around for 5 months, but have you changed your business plan since then? once again, people have come or paid us to be consultants, to come give presentations, but we have been able to make a profit after only 5 months. Again, our business is very low risk. We don't have an actual physical location, no brick and mortar store, and that has helped. But talk has helped us, word of mouth. We've developed our website. We have merchandise that we're able to sell now. So we're actually doing very, very well for only 5 months.
And I want to add to that as well. Businesses can expand. I would like to say I think the happiest person here today is Gary because we use his insurance for our business. And I think he looks at us just ready to see the money coming at him. He's like, yes, you're setting up a new store in DC. That's more money coming into my pocket. Anyone else want to add? Gary? So my program, I provide liability insurance, and I provide that for interpreters. I would say about 12 years ago now, I started a contract with RID, the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf. And that program just helped me bloom. People find me through RID and that partnership. I'm now working with spoken language interpreters and translators as well. And I think that's where the marketing really came in. I started working with interpreters for the deaf, but now I've branched out a little bit. And I think that having branched out has really kept my business running. Russ, I think we need to talk about how that cash flow happens. I don't want to know percentage, but do you have how does that work with the percentage of sales, or what happens when you sell insurance? So really, I have commission. Everything that I sell, I then get commission. And I truly live off of that commission. Russ, so he really makes a living from that commission, the percentage of the sales coming back to him. Zach makes money from being paid to present. Now let's hear from Laural.
Really, I like to invest in the community. So there's been a lot of people who have asked me like, oh, can you design this? Can you do that? I am only one person, and I recognize that I can't do everything. So I have to be honest about that. And if I have enough people sign up for a specific thing, then I'll design that specific thing. For example, if there's a shirt that a lot of people want, then that's fine. It might be for a specific city, and I will design that, and I will print that and make it so I'm able to sell to enough people and make money off of that. Amelia has helped me do that before. So I recognize that if I have a lot of shirts that I'm unable to sell, that's not great. So I want to have guarantee that my product is going to be successful and people will buy it. So I kind of have to budget my time and figure out exactly what's going to work with the community. A lot of people have asked about pricing for their products and services. So for example, at Mazzeria, we look around at the competition. How much are they charging for pizza? We look online, we do research, so we figure out what size our pizza is going to be, and we compare. So for example, if somebody else is going to be $25, maybe we'll go a little bit cheaper. Because we're not famous, people don't know who we are, so we don't want to be charging something like $25 for pizza. There are more well-known restaurants that might be able to get away with charging a little bit more, but since we're not at that space, we'll go a little bit lower than that. But if we were to use a more expensive ingredient like duck, obviously there'll be an charge on that. That's a little bit different. So we have to kind of navigate and do some research as well as testing. Once we opened, we set up a specific strategy. So what we did, we tried to see what the areas around us were doing and compared. Some people said that we were a little bit cheaper, and then they started telling their friends, and we started to get more people coming into our restaurant, which was awesome. After a while, we were able to build our customer base, and on a slow day, for example, Mondays and Tuesdays are usually pretty slow, so we decided to be closed on Monday. And then Tuesday, what we decided to do was set a $10 pizza. So everyone loves the specific thing that we have. So our pizza is quite a bit cheaper than the competitive pizza that's around us, and we are able to do that. So we provide the special discount, and that's what we do on Tuesdays. Wednesday through the weekend is usually fine. So what we do is San Francisco set up $15 minimum wage. So we started paying we were at $9 an hour originally, and then San Francisco increased to $15. So we make sure that we're keeping up every year. But this does affect our business strategy, and that's something that we do have to affect, that will affect our prices. We don't want to lose our clients, so we were a little bit at a loss at this time. So we decided to raise our prices just a little bit in January. It's a little bit slow. People are typically not going out to eat as much. It's right after the holidays. And then for Valentine's Day, we increased it a little bit again. So in February, we realized that more and more people were starting to come in, and that continued on through the summer. So we needed to make sure that we're strategizing and matching the different times of the year. After that, we decided to add the food truck, and that helped to increase our profits as well. So our price kind of varies depending on what's going on.
And I wanted to add to that as well. We have Peking duck pizza, and we have our margarita pizza. Which one do you think is our top order? Margarita, of course, because everyone knows it. But every time we increase by $1, do you think we increase the margarita or the Peking duck? We increase the margarita because there's already a high demand for it. So 80,000 people order margarita pizzas in a year. Times $1, that's $80,000 right there, versus the Peking duck, which has much fewer orders. So we increase the one that has the highest order, and we never increase the ones that have the lowest orders, which is just another strategy that we utilize.
Right, so we'll increase whichever one is more popular.
Now, I'm wondering how you have determined the pricing for your products.
For me, quality is the most important. So I have to think about what type of shirts am I going to buy, and that's going to affect how much I'm going to charge. I need to think about the ink, and typically, I'll print things digitally. I'll use digital transfer. And when I first started, I had a family, and I do have kids, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to take care of them at that time, and I did have to raise my prices. And I did explain to my clients why that was the case and why I was increasing my prices, because I wanted to make sure things were of a specific quality. So I designed one thing one time, and then I'm able to sell things later, which may decrease the price later. But what happens is people start to look forward to the products that I'm making, and that helps me to increase my business. So people will get excited that I might be releasing something next year. But some people do come back and buy my old designs as well, and that's helpful. Again, I'm a part-time teacher here, and it is kind of challenging running a business as well as being a professor on campus, so I have to make sure I'm prioritizing and managing my time, because both of these things are so important to me. So my business is 24/7, and I'll do little pop-ups. Sometimes I'll be open 3 times a year, and people know that. And people typically know that that's going to happen around the holiday time, and I sell more during that time. But I'm not open all times of the year, as I'm a professor now. So people know that they have this small window of time, and then if that's the case, the demand is higher because they want to be making sure that they're taking advantage of the products that I'm having to offer. So that's one strategy that I have used in the past to make sure that my business is successful.
So I know, Zach, you're fairly new. This question might not apply to you, but we've had a business now for 10 years and 25 years. So I'm wondering what you have that's available today that you wish you had had when you got started.
I would say in the last 10 years, there hasn't been too much of a difference, but one big thing that has really helped my business is Instagram. I do use Facebook every once in a while, and that has helped, but if Instagram had been around 10 years ago, Actually, I'm not really sure. I don't know.
All right, fair enough.
For me, when I knew that I wanted to establish a restaurant, I knew that location was super important. With the financial part, we decided to go to a bank to take out a loan because that is something that we needed help with. We had to ask around a little bit. We knew that there were not super many businesses at that time. So we went to a nonprofit organization and got a consultation about how to get the best loan, to get the financial part figured out. We only had interpreters for an hour, and we recognized that that was not enough time with the interpretation process, so that was something that was a little bit limiting. We had some more questions that we needed to ask, but we wanted to make sure that part was very, very clear.
Gary, you have nothing to add? That's all right. Actually, if you don't know, my father, who is deaf, owned a business for 30 years. It was a watch repair business, and I got a lot of my information from him. But many of my friends haven't had similar experiences. So now I think it's amazing the resources that are available, like RAT has and like we have even with Yantern. I believe we have one more question for you all now.
Now, for those in the audience who want to set up a business, what advice do you have for them? Laurel's saying, my advice would be to invest the time, to find the time. Maybe you think you have work or you have other things that you want to prioritize, but you just need to find that time. For me, looking back, having a full-time job and running a business, that was very challenging. So sometimes I would stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning. Of course, rest is important. You need to take care of yourself, but you can always find time. You might have to give up something, but you'll be able to find that time.
I think the bottom line is really having that fire within, having that motivation. You have to really want to do it and be willing to give up and sacrifice some of your everyday life. Businesses run 24/7. That's how it started for me 25 years ago. I was up early morning all the way through the night. Now I'm able to sleep a little bit more, work a little bit less. But like Melody was mentioning before about really having the passion for your business, I think that's critical. You have to understand the marketplace. You have to understand the products and the services that you'll be dealing with. And you also have to understand how you're different than everyone else. I mean, there are so many competitors out there, but the bottom line, like Laurel was saying, is you have to sacrifice and you have to have that passion.
I know I'm the newbie. I've only been around for 5 months. But sometimes you just have to look in the mirror and recognize things about yourself. For example, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. So every day, I might feel a little bit nervous. You have to wing it sometimes. It's just the way it goes. And I have to accept that. So there are lots of things I don't know. What I do is I'll ask for help. With Deaf Green Thumb, I recognized that Brittany and I needed to work together on all of these different things, but we also had to ask for help. We needed feedback, we needed suggestions, and we would modify based on that feedback that we received. So we wanted to have this deaf community business, and we knew that the deaf community was strong. So even if you do have a weakness, that's okay. It's fine. Ask for help. You'll be surprised how much support you'll be able to find from your friends and your family, and that's awesome. If you were to ask me 9 years ago, my answer would be so much different than it is today. So looking back, I worked very, very long days. It was a very physically and mentally taxing working all day. I remember for the first few years when we set up our business, if you asked me if I was able to come present at this conference, I just wouldn't be able to do it because my time was spent and all of it was invested in in my restaurant. But now I'm able to do both. I'm able to split my time, and that's awesome. I'm able to do this. I'm able to invest this hard work. And yes, it is hard work, but as a team, we've been able to be so successful. And I'm proud of my team that I have at Mazzeria, and I've been able to develop that over the past few years.
Let's give everyone a round of applause. I know time is running short, but I do want to open it up to just the first 5 or 6 people for some public Q&A. If you have a question for anyone up here, come on up, and then we'll go ahead and proceed with the drawing. Are there any questions, or are we feeling pretty satisfied? If you have a question, come on up to the front of the stage. Going to be easy for us. I'm not the best copy signer. Troy here in the front is doing really great, but it'll be easier for everyone if you come on up to the front. Hi, my name is Jill, and I have a question about medical insurance. And I'm wondering how to get involved with that. How do you get medical insurance if maybe you're working only part-time with the business?
For me, as I'm self-employed, I have to pay for my own insurance. I mean, I don't have great health insurance because I can't afford the fancy kind.
But for me, because of my chronic illness, I actually have 2 different types of insurance in order to get covered 100% because I'm sick all the time. And even when I'm traveling, I then have a 3rd insurance for travel. So I have to protect myself for all of the what ifs. And that's hard for people who do have those chronic illnesses. I think one thing about us owning a business is being self-employed and self-insured. My answer to this question is pretty easy because about 70% of people out there are self-employed and they do get their own individual health insurance through a variety of ways. Right now we have Obamacare, ACA, and through that everyone is required to have insurance. Here in New York we have what's called the marketplace and you can buy insurance through that pretty easily.
We have an insurance person here, so that's very helpful.
I rely heavily on him. I have meetings, I have people who own businesses, and every time I call Gary up and ask about professional liability and everything I might need to know. I've learned quite a bit, but I have a long way to go. I've also been able to refer people now to him and continue that deaf ecosystem.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm wondering, how do you balance your personal life with your work life? That is a great question. I have a family, and that's a full-time job. So you have to come up with some sort of a schedule. For me, I mean, every week is different because my kids are kids. One of them is in kindergarten, so we have soccer, we have sports, we have a lot going on. So I give up one day every week to completely focus on my business. And when you become a parent, you have to be able to navigate this. You have to be able to give up some of your time, and that's just the way it is. You can't do everything. And if you really do love your business, you have to be able to give up something. For me, when I first started a restaurant, I do have kids. We had one that was in preschool and one that was in middle school at that time. So every year during spring break, as a family, we take a family vacation. And that's something that we do every year during spring break as well as one in the summer. And that's something we're committed to. I'm also a full-time dad. And I can't afford daycare. I don't know how people do it, honestly. It's honestly more than my paycheck would be, so we don't have daycare. It's a balance, honestly. Just like was mentioned before, you have to find the balance between your business and your family. Sometimes you have to figure out where you're going to go, try to find friends who will help you babysit, you balance it out. And luckily, I have a partner that's able to support me in that. I often do my work at night, which means when my wife is working all day, I'm able to get my stuff done at night. But sometimes I realize my wife and I aren't talking anymore. So we try to have a date night once a week. So what my suggestion is, you just figure out your schedule and you work with it.
Now, for me, like I've already mentioned, I'm sick all the time. I'm literally sick 24/7. I have kids. I have a wife. We have businesses. And like has also been mentioned, businesses run 24/7. They never stop. And the kids need to eat. The kids need to talk about their drama. The kids need to talk to their parents. Typically, though, we, leave the restaurant, go out to eat, and then we talk about the restaurant. So our business is always where we are. We go out to eat, and I'm analyzing the business. And the kids are always like, Dad, stop. We went on a family vacation to Italy, and we ended up being in the newspaper in Naples. And my kids were like, Dad, we're supposed to be on vacation. There was one day we took Segways out. That was really cool. That was the best day of their lives in that entire 2 weeks because Melody and I failed to actually be on vacation. So we need to focus on that when we're not in the workplace. And that's really hard. I think, it's impossible to be perfect. We're improving year after year, but we're getting there. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight and representing the passion that you all have and really showing us what passion is all about. I know a little bit now about everyone's business up here. Obviously, Mazzeria, we know, is food, restaurant. Deaf Green Thumb, I don't know that I fully understand yours. Laural, too. I'm wondering if you could talk to me a little bit more about what your businesses actually are or what it is that you're hoping to achieve. Is it for service? Is it for a product? I'm not really sure. I know you sell insurance. What type of insurance? I guess I'm just wondering a little bit more about who it is that you work with, who your clientele is.
I mean, it's been an hour and a half, and I was really hoping nobody was going to ask me that. I'm going to wait until she sits down, and then I'll answer her question. That's one of our biggest problems. There are so many things that we want to do. With Deaf Green Thumbs, we have our Instagram presence. Once again, we have been coaching, we have been presenting at workshops, and we have all of these different things that we want to do, and we're trying to narrow our focus. But really, our main goal is service. That's number one. We want to provide a service instruction in American Sign Language about how to care for plants. A lot of people just don't really have much information in that area. So we want to be able to provide that information in American Sign Language, as well as providing consulting and workshops. How do you take care of plants? How do you do these different things in that field? As a consultant, that's going to be kind of a side part of our business. There are a lot of different companies who don't know how to work with deaf people. How do you do that? What is appropriate? What is inappropriate? So there are a few companies that we've been working with as consultants. And again, I do recognize that one of our weaknesses is that we are trying to take on too many different things, and we really need to narrow our focus and figure out exactly what we want to be all about. I know we're running out of time, so I'll be brief. I have two different things. I do design, for example, wedding design for clients. I often try to accomplish what the clients want, and I enjoy doing that, but I do miss making my own art because I'm often satisfying the client's requirements rather than my own. and I sell my products in various department stores. I partner with one store in Rochester, Peppermint Rochester, as well as Shop One, here's on campus, and more local Rochester stores. So that's slow and it's going, but that is my goal, to be able to focus on my own art and sell that in larger stores.
And for me, I'm sure everyone has insurance. We provide all sorts: auto insurance, homeowners insurance, but that's only 15% of the business. The other 85 is about business and nonprofit insurance and how nonprofit organizations have to have liability insurance. I also work, like I said, with interpreting agencies and interpreters. Many of those are required to have insurance in order to provide the service to their clients. I also work with a lot of deaf business owners, deaf-owned businesses. That's actually how, and the reason why I talk to Russ as often as I do. Russ, I think you can verify that I give you a great service, right?
Yes, he does.
That's what it's all about. And really the key is full access to communication. It's rather than having to talk through a video relay interpreter, I can have the information straight from the horse's mouth, as they say. That was a great question.
I went to the Mazzeria presentation yesterday, and they talked about different ideas on how your business must evolve over time, depending on what is going on contextually, and you need to be able to keep up with that. Now, I'm curious if you've ever had to make some sort of a hard decision or recognize a decision that you made that wasn't great and you had to take it off on another path. What did you do in that situation? I was involved with letterpress printing for many years, but I needed to do screen printing because that's something that has become more popular recently. So I have been more involved with that recently. I recognized it was a better fit for my audience, and it's something that I've wanted to continue doing my art, and it's a way that I have had to keep up with the times.
The bottom line is about finding that niche market. For me, it was with interpreters. It was also with deaf-owned businesses. And that's where I've really been able to bloom. Those are the areas that I've been able to get my name out there and help people get to know who I am. This is going to be our last question now.
Again, I'm Jill. What are the challenges and barriers you've had to getting access through interpreters? Anything you want to share in that arena? Luckily, I do work from home. Most of my clients are hearing, and they don't even know that I'm deaf, but we usually communicate through email or Facebook. And when I do have to make a call, that is when they find out that I'm deaf, but I use VRS, Video Relay Service, for that. And I, thus far, haven't really had a situation where I've needed to use an interpreter. Maybe, Gary, that would be a better question for you.
For me, I'm on video relay often with clients. I think my clients are typically at least related to the deaf community, but I have some clients as well who are hearing and not involved in the community. At first, I think, I was going along with what I typically do. And what I've learned to do is to talk to individuals at the beginning of the phone call about what interpreting is. I talk to the interpreter about the vocabulary that's going to be happening so they know what the call will be like, and that makes things much easier.
At the beginning, when we were starting to establish our business in San Francisco, we did have a lot of barriers and frustrations in getting people to provide interpreters. And it was a lot of back and forth with different people to try to figure out how to make that work. Hearing people often want things to move a lot faster, and adding an interpreter into the mix makes things take a little bit longer. But most of our customers as a restaurant are hearing, but we recognize that we just have to work within that system. So we tried to use our first approach, and it didn't really work, so then we switched to Convo, and thus far, using VRS has been okay. Sometimes hearing people will understand me, sometimes they won't, but we just try to get it to work. We use a hue light system. So sometimes people will come to the bar and then they're able to call the waiters that way. So that is something that has worked, and 95% of the time I would say that's pretty successful, and that's helped us to be able to answer the phone and to be able to communicate with our customers.
All right, let's give everyone a round of applause up here. So before we proceed, I do want to thank RIT for sponsoring this. So let's give RIT a round of applause. Thank you to Lorianne for making this possible. And thank you for Scott Atkins for making this entire week amazing. We were able to interact with alumni and students, and it's been a wonderful week.